Life is a carnival, believe it or not. Life is a carnival, two bits a shot.
When I first met Joanne, she was 7.5 feet tall. She was on stilts at the Maryland Renaissance Festival, wearing long, ribbony pants and a giant sombrero. I was 22 years old and just beginning my career as Niccolo the Gypsy Juggler. Joanne had on little pixie mime makeup, and she was playing the penny whistle with one hand. She looked like she had tiny feet, but that's because she had attached 2 teeny-weeny baby sneakers to the bottom of her stilts. She looked otherworldly. She began to juggle, so naturally I started juggling too. And we passed juggling pins between us in the lane for a few minutes, and then she disappeared. The next time I saw her was not until the following spring at the Scarborough Fair, a Renaissance festival in wonderful Waxahachie, Texas. She was attaching a thick rope between 2 trees using a giant winch. And then she rose up and balanced on one foot on that rope, and my heart went up with her. She performed a show on the weekends as the Queen of Whimsy. She didn't talk in the act, but she was raucous on the kazoo. She performed with the mule-like determination of a true clown. Turns out she had mules. Yes, she had 3 mules and a donkey named Bingo. In fact, a whole menagerie of beloved performing animals. And she gave them all voices, cradling Roderick, the performing rooster, in her arms.
Joanne, I'm not so sure I want to do the show today. What? There's sunflower seed, you say? Then I am in.
She used the same voice for each animal, but somehow managed to make it work for them. Something told me I should take it slowly with Joanne, which was contrary to my nature, especially at age 23. We practiced juggling together every day for several weeks as friends. But Joanne kept getting prettier, and our practices kept getting longer. One hot day as the Texas sun set over our evening juggle, and we sat on the stage watching the 2 male elephants try to mate again. Joanne turned to me, her biceps gleaming with juggler sweat, and she asked me, "Do you know what we have?" I responded, "No, what do we have?" And she smiled and she said, "A romance." And then we kissed. We decided to create a show together, and we called it Niccolo Whimsy, performing for 9 months out of the year at Renaissance fairs around the country. Our signature piece in Niccolo Whimsy was one where we hugged and juggled pins behind each other's backs. We called it Huggling. To look at us on stage with similar gestures caps, you would think we were similar beings, but that was not really the case. In our 2-person show, Joanne was, again, largely wordless, and I just threw the words out willy-nilly. I would exclaim, "The Queen of Whimsy doesn't talk," to which she would turn her head toward the audience and reply deadpan, "Much." I took the world in through my ears and out through my mouth. Joanne took the world in through her eyes and out through her hands. She could sew stunning costumes and build magnificent mule sheds. I had fallen in love with the reincarnation of a pioneer woman. We traveled the country together in a caravan of fools and mules, living in close quarters in a pop-up trailer on the festival sites. We practiced together, performed together, and had the same beautiful bohemian friends. It was a fun life. After about 10 years on the road, we moved to a farm in Brandywine, Maryland. We called it Okie Dokie Acres. And in 1992, we got married in the woods behind our house. Joanne in a vintage wedding dress that she had purchased at a thrift store in Texas. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The minister proclaimed that like the ring, we would always come back around to each other. But our different interests started pulling us in different directions. I was a veteran of 100 Grateful Dead concerts. Live music was more than just a hobby for me, it was oxygen. And I would fly solo to my own version of Nirvana, Jazz Fest in New Orleans. Yeah. Joanne would stay behind because she had a fear of flying, plus she did not want to stand in a field all day for 4 days and then go out again at night. She wanted to be back on the farm with the animals. Spending time with the equine was her oxygen. She became an environmental activist and president of the local community association. I never went to the meetings. Sometimes it seemed as if Joanne and I were living in separate realities with a different cast of characters whose names the other person didn't even know. I got into the book business and started traveling even more. And the Nicola Whimsy show, our big original commonality, became something we only performed together a few times a year. You don't notice how you drift apart. It happens slowly. Then one day in 2008, Joanne had a terrible headache and was vomiting. In the emergency room, they did a CAT scan, and the doctor came back and he said, "Joanne has an intracerebral hemorrhage. We have to helicopter her to a neurosurgeon at Georgetown immediately." 2 impossibly young paramedics took Joanne away on a gurney, and she was gone. I Googled intracerebral hemorrhage. 1/3 of people die immediately. Half are dead within a year. I could hardly breathe. A cold darkness enveloped me, crushing my chest. I could see the emptiness in all the parts of my life that Joanne filled. Without her, I would not fully be myself, the person I had become with Joanne. Joanne had become part of me. Numb and panicked, I got into my car and drove to Georgetown Hospital, my mind racing. I had never imagined that Joanne would not be there when I came home. Who would call me Lemmykins and laugh at me just for being myself? Who would give our precious animals a voice so they could call her by her name? Joanne. When I got to the hospital and ran inside, there was Joanne, awake, alert, and talking. The neurosurgeon said, "Her brain bleed stopped on its own. I did not have to operate. She will have balance problems, but those should improve over time. She's going to be okay." My body went limp, and all the oxygen rushed back into my lungs. Joanne was still with me. When she got out of the hospital, my rope-walking, stilt-balancing wife was walking with a cane. Slowly, every morning with loving purpose, she would make her way across the field to the barn, holding 1 bucket of water to care for our 2 beautiful Irish draft horses, Olivia and Minnie Cooper, and our mammoth donkeys, Sophie and Rosa.
Joanne, where you been? Why only 1 bucket? Get Nick to help you. He's just standing there.
When Joanne, excuse me, Joanne eventually fully recovered. I attribute that to mule-headedness. And I think science would back me up on that. Slowly, we started joining each other's activities, and last New Year's Eve, we set up a table together for food and water watch at a concert in Baltimore. She met my music friends, I met her activist friends. We all danced together and laughed and handed out pamphlets and rocked against fracking. It was a perfect night for us. We're trying to get our donkey, Rosa, pregnant. I am not participating in that. I want to go to New Zealand And I'm trying to figure out how to do that in as many short flights as possible. I'm not going without Joanne. We've been together for 35 years and married for 27 of those. These days, I have to warm up for 10 minutes before hugging or I strain my connective tissue. It's okay. Hugging injuries are always worth it. Sometimes I think people are not so sure about me, wonder whether I'm for real. Then they see that I'm married to Joanne Flynn, and they figure I must be all right. And every morning, as she walks out to the barn, a bucket of water in each hand, I look at her, and I feel 7.5 feet tall.
Here comes the sun.